In my last video, I explored Dan Harmon's story circle. If you haven't seen that video, check the link in the video description. Today, we're going to look at an example of the story circle in action. I'm going to write a small scene of my own to show just how versatile this method can be. Let's get into it. The story circle in action. I hope you can see the power of this method by now, but we can take it even further. The story circle doesn't just work on your story as a whole, it can also work on each part of your story. The same structure that makes a good story can also make a good act in a story. Let's consider the first half of the second act of The Fellowship, which begins as the hobbits leave the Shire. Zone of comfort. Our hero is Frodo. That's the character we want the audience to relate to. They want something. Frodo wants to escape the ring wraiths and deliver the ring to Elrond. They enter an unfamiliar situation. Who's in our hypothetical movie poster? A terrified Frodo, Merry, Pippin, and Sam are staring uncertainly at something over their shoulder. Aragorn appears as a shadowy figure and we don't know if he's friend or foe. The Nine are seen charging through the mist in the background. They adapt to their situation. This is where the hobbits cross the Brandywine and reach the town of Bree. They get what they want. We have our meeting with the goddess moment when the hobbits meet Aragorn in the Prancing Pony. Just don't tell Aragorn I called him a goddess. They pay a price. The hobbits have received their second call to adventure and follow Aragorn. He leads them to Weathertop, where a ringwraith stabs Frodo with the Morgul blade. They return to a familiar situation. Here we have a chase between Arwen and the Nine as she rushes Frodo to safety across the Brunnen River, although in the books this was done by the character of Glorfindel. They are changed. Obviously, full transformation hasn't happened yet, but Frodo and the other hobbits are beginning to understand the full reality of their situation. This could also be counted as a return to the normal world, since everyone is now present. The hobbits are together, Gandalf is back, Aragorn is there, and Frodo has even been reunited with Bilbo. Before we continue, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check the description of this video for links to all the tools and resources I use in my writing and video production. Now back to the video. But we don't need to stop there. I won't get too deep into the weeds with examples on this, but we could do the same thing for each chapter, or each scene within a chapter. You could even structure an entire dialogue scene with this method. Let's whip one together now as an exercise. Sheila sat across from Jim, who slumped silently over his mashed potatoes. He hardly greeted her when he got home. After barely a peck on the cheek, he grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat heavily before his plate at the table. "Jim, can you pass the salt?" "How can I pass it if it's not on the table? Put it on next time." "It's right in front of you. Open your eyes." "Oh." Jim slid the salt over to her. It bumped against the plate and tipped over, spilling on the table. "What is wrong with you? You've been entirely out of sorts since you got home. You can either tell me what your problem is, or I'll get the couch ready for you tonight." Jim didn't meet her gaze. He stared absently into his peas, mashing them into his potatoes. "I was fired." "What? Jim, oh, I'm sorry. That job meant everything to you." "Yeah. Some kid fresh out of college will be in my office by Monday." Jim barely touched his food. He took a few modest mouthfuls in the silence between them, but never tasted any of it on its way down. "Listen, Jim." Sheila reached across the table and took his hand in hers. "Maybe it's time for us to make that change we talked about. That acreage on the coast? We have some savings. Maybe it's time to cash them in. We could talk to that realtor tomorrow." Jim met her eyes for the first time since he sat down. "I'm sorry, Sheila, but yeah, that might be nice." "Okay, if I pulled it off, that should be the entire story circle in one short conversation. Let's see how I did." The zone of comfort. In the first paragraph, Jim has just arrived home from work and Sheila, his wife, has dinner on the table for him. But something's off. He barely acknowledges her and seems deflated. They want something. "Jim, can you pass the salt?" Sheila wants the salt, but does she really? Her husband has been aloof since he got home. She asks for the salt, but what she really wants is to re-establish connection with Jim. The salt is just a metaphor of that. They enter an unfamiliar situation. "How can I pass the salt if it's not on the table? Put it on next time." Jim has pulled away from Sheila. He snips at her instead of confessing the source of his frustration to her. They adapt to their situation. "It's right in front of you. Open your eyes." To which Jim replies, Oh, and indifferently slides it across the table to her. They get what they wanted. Sheila gets the salt, but not in the way she wants as it spills on the table. She also gets a connection, but not the connection she wants as it comes in the form of indignation from her husband. What's wrong with you? You've been entirely out of sorts ever since you got home. Either tell me what's wrong, or I'll get the couch ready for you tonight. They pay a price. They discover Jim lost his job. I was fired. Jim regrets being so aloof and snippy with Sheila, and she feels sorry for him after losing a job he loved. They return to a familiar situation. Listen, Jim, maybe it's time for us to make that change we talked about. That acreage on the coast? We have some savings. Maybe it's time to cash them in. We could talk to that realtor tomorrow. They return to civil tones, and Sheila extends an olive branch by suggesting that they consider moving to an acreage on the coast, as they discussed in an earlier moment off scene. They are changed. Jim meets Sheila's gaze, and their relationship is restored. More than that, they now have a plan for the future and hope. I'm sorry, Sheila. But yeah, that might be nice. There you have it. I couldn't quite compress it into 8 lines of dialogue, but bad acting aside, I'm happy with how close I came. So how far could you take this? As far as you want, hypothetically. You could write an entire story in only 8 to 10 words. It might be useful as an exercise or to brainstorm story ideas. And you don't need to get this particular over each act, chapter, scene, passage, or line of dialogue. It all depends on how into the weeds you want to get with your plotting. Or, on a more macro level, you could use the circle to plot an entire series. And today's video is running a bit long, so we'll cover that topic in the next episode. Until next time, good writing and Calamus Gladio Fortior.